Let's get into the energy debate now. I want to first focus on renewables, and I'm joined by Aidan Morrison, who's Director of the Energy Program for the Centre for Independent Studies. Thanks for joining us, Aidan. Really appreciate the detailed work you're doing on this topic. And one of the things you're focusing on now is the way that the government and the energy market operator have fast-tracked new multi-billion-dollar transmission projects from normal scrutiny. And these are transmission projects that we all as consumers will have to pay for. And of course, the main beneficiaries of them are the renewable energy companies who are planning to plug into them. How is this happening and how much will it cost us?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Chris. It's been happening for a while now. It's actually been 2 years ago they've repeated a process where they skipped an essential consultation in order to give final approval to add some small-ish amounts of money to fast-track some renewables. But just in December this year, they skipped a crucial consultation, breaking the energy rules that are meant to be written for consumer benefits, and used that to basically ram through the biggest, largest projects in the entire energy transition. These are VNI West and HumeLink. About $9 billion worth of transmission projects were given their final tick of approval by the Australian Energy Market Operator on a draft ISP that had not been scrutinised or consulted with anyone outside of AEMO. So in my opinion, drafts are called a draft for a reason. They need to be checked. But in this case, we're having our most important energy investments that are going to be passed on to consumer bills, about $9 billion worth, rushed through based on a draft that hasn't been checked by anyone else. And the Energy Minister, Chris Bowen, has just managed to get through a rule change request to make that normal so that we never get proper scrutiny on these processes.
Now, just to correct me if I've got this wrong, but as I understand it, these transmission projects are all regulated projects. That means they get a regulated rate of return. If you spend $1 billion on a transmission line, you get a certain percentage back every year you're allowed to make as profit. So we're built into financing those consumers. And of course, people can then build their wind farms or solar farms alongside those transmission lines and feed them into us. It gives them a guaranteed profit as well because they're now connected to the network. All of this is adding to our costs, isn't it?
That's exactly right. Yes, these are regulated assets, so it means that basically once we approve them, we commit to letting the energy companies charge enough to get back their full costs from consumers plus a regulated return. So they get a profit margin on top of that as well. So indeed, that is literally passing the buck straight to consumers, and the benefit is largely those investors that want to be able to make sure that all their energy is dispatched immediately. Now, if we were building the most efficient system, we'd carefully time the right moment to build extra transmission so that it's not too early. But it's in the interests of the energy investors in wind and solar to make sure there is so much transmission that they are never stuck waiting in a queue, and they always have ample capacity to be able to send it anywhere around the country when any scrap of energy is required somewhere else. But really the efficient way to build the system would be to make sure that we do it at exactly the right time. And in this case, it seems like we're building these assets several years earlier, even than what the market operators' analysis show they're required for, under their analysis. And there's a few issues that I could raise with that too.
Now, just quickly, Chris Bowen said on the weekend that it will cost us only $120 billion to get the electricity system to net zero. He's wrong, isn't he? By how many billions is he wrong?
I guess something like $100 billion or something like that at least. I'm really amazed that that quote came out from Chris Bowen, because the Australian Energy Market Operator, they have made it quite clear in their webinars and consultations, which myself and the team at Centre for Independent Studies were very careful to attend, that that number does not include consumer energy resources. So that's all of the rooftop solar and also all of the batteries. And that's the lion's share of the batteries that are required for this transition. So enormous amounts of the system simply aren't included in that number. And there's more than that as well. upgrades to the distribution network as well, which is one of the biggest single parts of the energy cost that you face in your bill at the moment. None of the upgrades required to support all these consumer energy resources, all the cars that will need to be charging as well. None of that's included as well. So there are not just minor exclusions, but massive exclusions. I actually think the things they've excluded are larger than the things they have included in that cost. So $120 billion is really nowhere near it at all.